My best advice to incoming students is to be open and to stay open. The students I love are the ones I meet before they've made a decision even, and they'll meet me in sort of a fair, university fair, or on a visit to the campus, and I'll say, what are you interested in? And they'll say, no. They have no idea, and they're so scared to admit that they're not sure what they want to do. And then I'll meet some that will give me an answer. And then I can see that that's literally the thing that they've been saying over and over. And so the advice is, here you had the opportunity I didn't have, that I fought for, which is a place where you can take a different direction. You can come in thinking you want to do one thing, and it's not impossible in that first year to just experiment, open up, see what other things you can do. We encourage that. Were you always interested in philosophy? Take a class in philosophy and see if you like that, right? What about a language? You really wanted to understand a bit more about Indigenous language and culture? Take a class. We're not committing to that, but what you're doing is remaining open to the idea that this could be something that I love. And you can mix it up here. It's so much easier. You don't have to fight. You can say, I want to do this weird thing and that weird thing, and it can come together. From the beginning of a class to the end of a class, if I can have students see in themselves and reflect, I grew so much. That's what I'm interested in. What did you learn about you? What did you learn about your capacity and your ability? For me to send them out of the university with that kind of confidence and the ability to understand they may not have met something, a new app, a new technology, it doesn't matter. They know they can face it, and they've dealt with it before, and they will deal with it again, and they will succeed.
Hello, good evening from Toronto and Mississauga, and perhaps good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're tuning in from. We're delighted to have you join us for our UTM Discover event this evening in Toronto. My name is Emily Mancuso. I'm the Assistant Director for Student Recruitment at the University of Toronto, Mississauga. I am joined today by one of our current students, Emily Porchak, who is a biology, chemistry, and psychology student. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm in my 4th year, and I'm very excited to be here tonight.
Thanks so much, Emily. We look forward to hearing your tour. I'm also joined by my colleague, Alicia Singh, who will be joining us on chat. So should you have any questions this evening, you're more than welcome to use the chat function, and Alicia is going to do her best job to try and answer those questions. But we will host a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So you're welcome to pose more questions at the end. And if you have specific questions for our students, as well as for Alicia, then we'll welcome those questions. Alicia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Discovery Day. My name is Alicia. I am a recent graduate from the University of Toronto Mississauga campus, and now I am a recruitment officer here at the Mississauga campus as well.
Thanks, Alicia. So we'll keep things simple in the sense that you have 2 Emilys hosting this evening and 1 Alicia as well. So I'm going to kick things off with a little bit of just general information about the University of Toronto Mississauga. We'll keep this nice and short and sweet. And the primary purpose of this evening really is so that you can hear a student-led tour from one of our current students from her perspective. So as I mentioned, my name is Emily and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm going to kick things off with just a little bit of general information about Mississauga. So we have quite a few people online this evening, and some of you may have already applied. Some of you may also be holding some offers of admissions, and some of you might just be generally researching the University of Toronto. So we hope that you find this information helpful. We'll also encourage you to have a look at additional events that we'll continue to host. So should you be looking for more in-depth information about admissions or about post-offer next steps for those of you that might have an offer, we'll continue to host a number of different events over the coming months. So first and foremost, I'd like to start by acknowledging the land from which we operate at the University of Toronto, as well as the land on which I currently am occupying here in Toronto myself. So the land is traditional land of the Indigenous peoples in Canada. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, the meeting place from which I'm presenting is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. So we're very grateful to have the opportunity to work on this traditional land. So a little bit of information and some quick facts about the University of Toronto, Mississauga. So we are one campus option within the broader University of Toronto. The University of Toronto is the largest university in Canada and one of the top ranked institutions in the world. Our campus is home to 15,000 plus both undergraduate as well as graduate students. And we have an extensive alumni network of UTM alum, 60,000 plus around the world. We offer 180 plus programs. So within the large array of courses that students can choose from at the University of Toronto, at Mississauga, we have 180 plus programs that are offered across 90 different areas of studies in 18 different academic departments. Why choose University of Toronto, Mississauga? There are a number of incredible reasons why you might choose University of Toronto, Mississauga. First and foremost, we are the University of Toronto, and that globally recognized degree can take you anywhere in the world. You'll have the opportunity to experience those quality academics, including opportunities for experiential learning or applied ways that you can take what you're learning in the classroom to prepare you for your future career or your future endeavors. We're innovative, we're contemporary. Our campus is situated on close to 200 acres of green space. We are located in the city of Mississauga, which is a city that is adjacent to the city of Toronto. In fact, if you travel to Toronto via the international airport, you would be landing at Mississauga, within the city of Mississauga. We have a number of programs that are unique to the Mississauga campus. So depending on what you may want to study, your program may be uniquely situated at Mississauga campus. We're an intimate and personalized community. The sense of community on our campus is renowned and well known. We have very active students, and I'll talk a little bit about how active our students, but you'll also get a sense of that from hearing Emily's tour later after I present some general information, as well as we're very much a global community. So if you're looking to globalize your experience at University of Toronto, you can most certainly do that at University of Toronto, Mississauga as well. So the programs that we offer on our campus are generally combined or can be situated within these three kind of core areas. So we offer a range of programs in arts, science, as well as business. So there's tremendous depth and breadth to what you may want to study. And some marquee programs that are unique to our campus would include programs like forensic science, which was the first program of its kind in Canada and is renowned. That is uniquely situated at Mississauga campus, as well as programs like theater and drama would be unique to our campus. Our Institute of Communications, Culture, and Information Technology offers a unique portfolio of communications-based programs that are specific to Mississauga campus. And then depending on which programs you may want, you might also be faced with the unique question of choosing between our campuses. So programs like biology, computer science, humanities, and social sciences are offered across all three campuses at U of T. So you would have the choice to be able to make the decision on where you would like your primary home base to be within the broader University of Toronto university setting. Our students make the most of their experience at University of Toronto. They're involved, they take the opportunity to seize a number of opportunities that will be available to them in a co-curricular, curricular, as well as academic setting at the university, as well as they have tremendous resources that are available to them as students. So hopefully through this presentation, you'll get to start to know a few of those resources that may be available to you or ahead of you in your journey at university. But there are certainly plenty more things to learn as you may potentially be joining us here at University of Toronto. We have a vastly international student population at the university. Close to 25% of our students on our campus are from international destinations. So we have a combination of both domestic as well as international students. And the International Education Center at UTM can be a home away from home for our international students, helping with support and general information on things like study permit applications, post-graduation work permits, as well as for our students across the board who may want to internationalize their experience or their education, they may be drawing on resources that are also available to them, like study abroad or studying at a partner institution around the world through the IEC resources that are available at Mississauga. So we have 3,000 plus international students within that community of 15,000 students. And we have 120 plus partners globally that our students might choose to go study with. In addition to what you are learning in the classroom and the applied research opportunities you may be taking advantage of, our students are also involved in a lot of co-curricular activities that may also include sport and recreation opportunities. We're in a unique year around the world navigating this global pandemic. So this year, what sport and recreation looks like in an adjusted format might include virtual programming, virtual fitness and recreation. Under normal circumstances, we have a fully functional aquatic center. We offer a number of varsity sports, which is the highest level of competition that you can compete at in Canada, as well as many different ways that you can get involved in recreation. So if your idea of complementing your studies is to take a yoga class or a relaxing meditation session, you would also have the opportunity to engage in those types of sport and recreation opportunities. In addition to co-curricular activities like clubs and associations, many of our students might choose in their first year to live on campus. We have a number of housing options available to our students. We have the largest number of spaces as well as the greatest amount of selection in terms of breadth and types of residences that are available. Emily's going to talk to you a little bit about her experience in residence in her personal tour. We have typically about 1,500 students each year that live in residence, and it's a great way to find your community within the broader UTM community. And we'll have more information and some more resources available should you wish to research a little bit more about what living on campus might look like. Some important mechanics to consider for those of you that have applied or may be applying. We do offer a number of awards as well as scholarships where applicants are automatically considered at the time of application. And typically assessment is made on your academic achievement. So we do have some automatic awards that you may be eligible for upon assessment based on high achievement in your academics, as well as we've been very fortunate this past year and going into the next academic cycle to offer some really substantial awards to both domestic students as well as international students. So my colleague Alicia will link a little bit of information on where you can do some more research on that, but we will be assessing awards at the time of application, and shortly after you might receive a decision on your application, you would also receive notification of whether or not you were eligible or have received any awards or scholarships. So the number one place to follow up on your application and to track the status of an application to University of Toronto and University of Toronto Mississauga would be through our Join U of T applicant portal. So for those of you that may have applied, it's important to periodically check in on this portal, as that will be where we will indicate whether or not there may be additional documents that we're looking for, and also the same place where we will communicate a decision. In addition to your decision, as mentioned, that's also where you'll find information about any awards that you may have received. This is a helpful application timeline to give you a sense of kind of what the timelines look like for those of you that have maybe applied, or for those of you that might be researching up to apply next year. So typically for our international applicants, they commonly would have applied in the month of November. We have an early consideration application deadline in November. Rest assured, no worries. If you have not applied yet, that you still have time, and there is an application deadline in mid-January that you can still work towards. So if you have not applied and you're keen to apply to University of Toronto, it's going to be really important that you have a look and submit that application this week in advance of our January application deadline. We typically assess applications from December through to the month of April. And for international applicants, we focus on trying to get those decisions out well in advance of commonly what is, in many markets, a May 1st deadline to kind of make those decisions and decide where you may want to be studying globally. For our domestic students, your application deadline as well is coming up in mid-January, so you'll want to focus on that too. And our decision making also occurs typically between January and through May, and we may also continue to distribute some decisions depending on when results are made available to us as late as the month of June, and you typically will have until the beginning of June to make a decision on your offer of admission. So all of this information will continuously be updated in our Join U of T portal. This is really just to kind of give you a high level sense of where we might be at this time of year. I hope you found that information to be helpful. Should you have any more specific questions about an application that you've already made, or if you want to connect with our student recruitment team, you're more than welcome to connect with us in a number of ways. You can always give us a phone call during Monday through Friday, typical work hours in Eastern Standard Time in Toronto. You're welcome to connect with us via our email, as well as we have some great resources that are available on our social channels, such as Instagram. So if you want to continue to follow and learn more about UTM and more about the student experience, at UTM Future is a fantastic option to follow to learn more. So on that note, I look forward to welcoming back Emily P. and handing things over to Emily, and she's going to take you on her personalized University of Toronto Mississauga tour.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emily, and my pronouns are she and her. And I am a fourth year student studying a double major in biology for health sciences and chemistry with a minor in psychology. Today, I'm going to show you around my most frequented spots on campus and what a kind of day around campus looks like for me. Now, I am going to start by sharing that I am a dancer, and I live in Woodstock, Ontario, which is about 1.5 hours from campus. It is an agricultural town that is growing rapidly, and it is where I'm currently commuting from. But I have also lived on residence in my first year and stayed in an apartment that I commuted from in Mississauga in my second and third years. Right now, because of COVID, classes are happening virtually, and I only have to go to campus 1 day per week, so I'm commuting from home in Woodstock. I like to leave extra early because the highway can be really busy. When I get to school, I like to park by the Recreation, Athletics, and Wellness Center, which is also known as the Rock or the gym, and I pay the daily rate for parking because I only go 1 day per week, but there is a parking pass if you're gonna be a commuter student all of the time. Now, first, we are gonna visit the Rock. So I enter the building, the Rock building, through the doors, and this is where our gym facilities are located. There is a swimming pool, fitness classes, intramural and varsity sports, as well as lots of different fitness programming. The Rock has suspended most of its activity right now, but there is some programming happening virtually. I am a member of the UTM competitive dance team, which is one of hundreds of clubs you can join on campus. And often before practice, we would meet in the gym and do some team workouts together. As a UTM student, you get the membership to the gym for free, which is awesome. After we did a team workout, we would head to the dance studio in the Rock and work on our routines for competition. Right now, our practices are happening virtually using Zoom, and this is an example of a night where we had Bring Your Pet to Dance night, which was really fun. And I have met some of my most best friends that I've had in my university experience through joining the dance team, and I highly recommend getting involved in a club or a team that interests you. The UTM dance team has also participated in events such as Homecoming, where we have performed during the halftime of the basketball games. It's also really fun when you're on campus to go to sports games and cheer on your school. It can be a great way to de-stress. Next, we will visit the Davis building, which is connected to the Rock. The The Davis building is where I spend most of my time on campus. This is because this is where the science wing with the updated biology and chemistry labs are located. Now, I think labs are really fun because they are small group environments and you get to actually see the science come to life, which I enjoy. As a chemistry major, I get to choose the types of lab courses that interest me the most. So I am currently taking biochemistry labs. Last semester, it was done completely virtually, and it was really interesting because we got to learn all about COVID-19 and how researchers study and create drugs for a disease such as COVID. This semester, some of it will be happening in person, and we'll get to do techniques ourselves for research. There are also professors' offices in the upper floors of the Davis building, and that is where you can go to get any extra help that you're with topics you're not understanding in class, or just clarify things and start making connections. I am doing weekly meetings with my professor, Dr. Poe, using Zoom for the course CPS 401 Research in Science Education right now. And this is a really interesting class where it's a small group of students and we get to create problem-based learning assignments for chemistry high school students. Now, if it was a typical year, we would have got to go in person and do our problems in high school classrooms, but this year we'll be doing it virtually. And I created a problem that's all about baking and cookies and what makes cookies rise. It has to do with acids and bases, if you're wondering. And I am super excited to be in this course and had no clue something like that was going to be available during my undergraduate degree. Now, speaking of cookies and food, we have the food court in the Davis building, and I spend a lot of time here before I go to my labs. I'm always preparing in the food court. And after lab, I love to get a donut or a hot chocolate from Tim Hortons, and I think it's just a really great way to treat myself. I also volunteer with the International Education Center, and I mentor incoming first-year international students. And this is a really great way for first-year students to ask questions in a fairly informal setting, and they can just get answers to things that you might not find out about otherwise. There's lots of different ways to get mentorships virtually and in person if that's something you're interested in. The IEC also has immigration support, intercultural development events, and ways to study abroad or go on exchanges. They're really a great resource for lots of different things on campus. In my second year, I found out about the Health and Counseling Center, which is on the first floor of the Davis building. Now, this is a great resource because they offer doctors, nurses, dietitians, and counselors that you can make appointments with. Mississauga is not my hometown, and it's not where my doctor's located. So being able to make an appointment with the HTC rather than trying to find a local community medical clinic or figure out how to get there was really convenient to take care of any health needs you have. And they work for both domestic and international students. Next is the CCT building. I do not have many classes in CCT, but I do walk through here often, and I will usually see events set up, such as the International Education Fair, which I remember seeing every year. Participating at these events can be a great way to learn more about things going on campus, and you can sometimes even get prizes or treats like a candy bar for participating at a booth. Connected to CCT is the Hazel McCallion Academic Learning Center, also known as the library. The library is another space where I spend a lot of my time when I'm on campus. My friends and I often hang out in the basement of the library, which has large tables such as those shown on screen, and it's a great way to do work together. There's also group study rooms where you can book the room and you have it with a closed off door and a whiteboard, which is really useful for studying math and chemistry problems for me. And then there's also silent study cubicles, which I like to use if I'm trying to read or it's the day before a test. The basement, though, is really and truly my most favorite spot, and my friends and I frequent there so often that my friends and I don't text each other to figure out where we are on campus. We just head to the basement, and we know somebody is going to be there. It's definitely the spot on campus I am going to miss the most. Our library is also really interesting because we have science liaison librarians that work to help with different departmental areas. For example, the science liaison librarian helps you with your referencing and researching capabilities specifically for science students, but there are liaison librarians for other areas. And this can be really helpful if you decide to take on a research project in your upper years because they can help you figure out how to navigate that. The UTM library is connected to the entire U of T library network. This means you have free access to tons of databases and resources. Now that might sound really boring, but I can tell you I have friends in other schools who are truly jealous of just how many resources we have access to for free being a UTM student. The next building we will visit is the Instructional Center, or IB. In the Instructional Center, there are lots of different types of lecture halls. My first year biology and chemistry lectures were in this 500-person lecture hall. And now my classes, when I was on campus, would be in the upper levels of IB in much smaller classrooms, but the desks are still in a U shape so you can interact with your profs and other students in the class really easily. Outside of IB, we have the free shuttle bus to downtown Toronto, and it stops at the St. George campus. Now, this shuttle is only free for UTM students, but is really handy if you plan on taking any classes at the St. George campus, or if you're like me and you want to try new restaurants in Toronto, visit the Royal Ontario Museum, or even walk to Union Station and catch the train to visit friends in other cities. It's really a handy resource. Now, I also got to try lots of new foods as part of my UTM experience. I had never tried sushi before I became a student at UTM, and my friends kind of convinced me to try it, and I ended up liking it. And you can get sushi at Bento, which is in the main level of IB. I liked sushi so much, so I continued to try new foods while I was at UTM. The next building we will visit is the newest one, and it is MN. I did not have many classes in MN before COVID started, but it really is a beautiful building, and I would come to MN to heat up my lunch in the microwaves there. I personally find heating up my lunch in the microwaves to be more economical. Deerfield Hall will be our next stop. I have had psychology labs in Deerfield Hall, and I have also signed up to participate in researchers' studies here. Lots of undergrad students at UTM even do the gathering of data for studies that are going on. This is by students that volunteer in labs or are taking on research opportunity programs. ROPs are available in all different areas, not just the sciences, and they can even lead to you publishing a paper during your undergraduate degree. That is really cool. And I like to participate as a participant in the researcher studies because I like to see what's going on around campus. One of my favorite food spots is the Northside Bistro. They have the most amazing pizza, and you can even customize it, which is great if you have any dietary restrictions. Now we will visit the Student Center. The Student Center houses the UTM Student Union. Now, the Student Union really works just to try to benefit the students as much as they can. They do this by running different events such as Free Breakfast Wednesdays. I've gone to these events, and one week they will have lots of different types of cereal, and the next week it could be pancakes and fruit. It's always a really good way to start your day with a free breakfast. The Student Center and Student Union also organize and run lots of different clubs on campus and run the Blind Duck Pub. This is a great spot that my friends and I would come to weekly, and we would often get poutine. This is a Canadian staple with fries, gravy, and cheese, and something about the Blind Duck Pub's fries just make it truly amazing. In my second and third year, I commuted from an apartment in Mississauga using the My Way bus system. Now, as a UTM student, through the UTM Student Union, you get access to transit for free, and that is really, really helpful. And I would get off of the bus outside of the Kenneth building, but when it was cold out, I would wait inside Kenneth, and then you could see me running after the bus. And it was always probably a little bit silly looking. Now we will visit the inside of that building, Kenneth. The Kenneth Center contains the Innovation Complex with the Office of the Registrar. Now, this is a really useful place once you begin your studies at UTM. You can find out about academic advising and get help with financial planning. The Office of the Registrar has helped me to be able to plan out and ensure I can complete all of my courses in my double major as well as my minor without having to take summer classes or doing an additional year, as I was trying to complete my degree in 4 years without summers, and they were able to help me accomplish this. There is also the Student Recruitment and Admissions Office in the Innovation Complex. Now, this is a place where I work as a student ambassador in a work-study position at UTM. I really wish I found out about work-study positions sooner, and they are offered in all different departments of UTM and even in some labs. Now, if you want to know how to find out about these opportunities that I missed for my first couple of years as a UTM student, you can use the Career Learning Network. This is a resource that allows you to find out about on and off-campus jobs, volunteer positions, and work-study positions, and a lot more things too. You even have access to it for a couple of years after you graduate, which is a really handy tool to find out about the job market. My last stop on this tour will be residence. In my first year, I lived in McGrath, which is a townhouse-style residence. You can actually see me and my roommate walking down a path towards McGrath in this image. McGrath residences are really cool because you have 2 bedrooms, a shared living space, a kitchen, and a bathroom. I have met some of my first friends at UTM through living in residence, and these are still people that I am friends with today. Now, when my friends and I got bored after a long day, sometimes we would try making our own meals, and we were young and hadn't had much experience yet. And this is an image of that case of me. Now, this is the end of my tour, and I was so happy to show you around my different spots that I visit on campus, and I hope you got to see more about what being a biology and chemistry student is like at UTM. As I am in my 4th and final year, I am looking on to what I'm going to be doing after I graduate. So I just thought I would share with you that I am looking towards applying to Teachers College, which is why I chose to study a double major in biology and chemistry so that I could have 2 teachables. But I was also speaking to some of my friends and what they're applying for, and they have found public health. And when I heard about it, I was like, I am definitely interested in that. It brings together the fields of teaching and health, which I've always been interested in. So I'm also applying to public health. And I may be looking for job opportunities because this world is a little bit different right now. So I don't have any plans set in stone. Now, this may sound totally wild to you that I am graduating. I sound like I have plans in totally different areas, and I just want to let you know that if you feel like you know your plan right now and it changes during your undergrad or it changes lots of different times, that is okay and it's completely normal. But it's also normal and perfectly okay if it stays the same throughout. I want to thank you for coming on this tour with me. And I'm going to invite Emily and Alicia back with me.
Thanks, Emily, for sharing your personalized tour of UTM. That was very interesting. I feel like I get to know a little bit about you every time we work together. I do have a very random question. What's the food item that you'd worked on in your photograph there?
Oh, that was shepherd's pie. That's a staple from my home. It just was kind of a little bit messy once it got onto the plate. So for people who don't know, it's like ground beef, vegetables, and then mashed potatoes on top.
My guess was like a donut, so I was completely off base in terms of what that was. So thanks so much for welcoming us back. For those of you that are online, I see lots of questions coming through. Alicia's back here. We're going to try and field some of your questions live. I did first want to point to some resources that are available. Mohammed, I see that you posed a fantastic question about whether or not our other campuses or what other resources might be available for live streams. So I'm going to mention a few resources that are available. The discover.utoronto.ca webpage is a fantastic resource to navigate all sorts of different events that are being hosted across the 3 campuses and by different divisions. So there you'll find a comprehensive list of different events that the different campuses may be hosting. I'd also love to encourage those of you that might be interested to learn more about Mississauga campus specifically. There's also a Mississauga Discover UTM page, which my colleague will put the link up for as well. And there you'll find deeper dive information for those of you that are asking detailed admissions questions. We have a long form video recorded version of our presentation, which will help guide you through programs that are available in terms of applying and next steps and the different mechanics of applying. So check that out. We also have a number of our upcoming future events that are also listed there. So you can continue to check out the UTM Discover page to learn a little bit more about additional sessions on different topics that we'll continue to host over the coming months. And then lastly, I'd like to also signal to, as a reminder, for those of you that want to learn more about the student experience at UTM, the @UTM Future social channels, specifically my favorite is Instagram. We have a number of different campaigns as well as different resources there, like the UTM Minute, where you'll hear from current students about their personal experience. We saw some questions flowing through as well about what the current state is like this year in terms of delivery with the global pandemic and what online learning has looked like. So you'll also find some perspectives on how students have navigated the unique circumstances of this year. So on that note, I'd like to open things up to my colleague, Alicia. We're going to hang out here for maybe another 15 or so minutes answering questions. So feel free to pose those questions, and I'll hand it over to Alicia to start asking some of those burning questions that you saw that were recurring through the session tonight?
First off, thank you so much, Emily, for your presentation. Well, both of you, actually. Emily, you made me go through my entire undergraduate experience, so that was awesome. So we do have a lot of questions coming up that are regarding scholarships. And so we have some students who would like us to kind of just talk a little bit more about the scholarships and kind of go through what are the different ones that are being offered and the difference between an automatic scholarship entrance versus applying for different types.
Yeah, so I'm happy to field that question, as that really sits in my wheelhouse of specialization in recruitment and admissions specifically. So we briefly highlighted on the presentation that the majority of our scholarships that are offered through University of Toronto Mississauga are automatic consideration and are based on entrance decisions. So we're typically looking at academics. Generally speaking, most of our scholarships do not have a supplementary application process. We do have some that are automatically considered based on your academic achievement, and you're just considered for those at the time that we assess your application. For our international applicants, we were very fortunate to offer some really substantial awards last year, where again, there were no additional supplemental process. The most sort of renowned application scholarship that requires an application is our Pearson scholarship, and I did see a question flow through about that. Now, the Pearson application deadline has passed. That was in November. And typically, to be considered for the Pearson Award, you would need to be nominated by your school counselor, and each school can nominate one student. And the assessment and decision making for that takes into consideration additional information like your co-curricular commitments and additional profile. And decisions are typically distributed for the Pearson. That's a full ride tuition scholarship, and those are usually made in the month of April. So for those of you that are looking to apply next year, there certainly are a number of awards that you can research, and I'm going to ask my colleague to put in the Award Explorer tool, which is a fantastic way to look at all of the awards that are offered across the University of Toronto by campus as well as by type, where you can start to get a sense of what the award amounts are and generally what the criteria are. But the great thing with Mississauga is, generally speaking, the vast majority of our awards, you don't necessarily have to do an extra step. What you can do is focus on your studies, focus on applying, and we will be considering you for an award automatically when we assess you for general admission.
Awesome, thank you. And before I give it back to Emily P., I'd just like to ask you, Emily, another admission-related question, and that is regarding transferring. So is it possible for students to transfer to U of T in their second year from their home university?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of students that maybe started college or university in Canada or globally who may decide that U of T is the place for them after having completed some studies. So we do have some general guidance and information for transfer students or students looking to apply who previously have some post-secondary experience. What we'll take into consideration at the time of application are all of the studies that you may have completed at the post-secondary or college or university level. And we'll typically also look at your high school results or your secondary school results. So feel free to check out our information, general information for applying. There's absolutely information about applying as a transfer student. It is possible that you could be considered for some transfer assessment or advanced standing. You'll want to bear in mind that depending on the campus and depending on the program you're applying into, there are a select number of programs, notably computer science, that do not accept transfer applicants. However, University of Toronto offers 700 plus programs across the 3 campuses. So there are quite literally hundreds of programs that will be happy to consider transfer applicants for an application to University of Toronto.
Awesome, thank you. So we do have some questions regarding financial assistance, and I know, Emily P., you were able to get a scholarship throughout your undergraduate degree, and I just wanted to know maybe if you were able to take on any other forms of financial assistance, and if you want to speak on that.
Yes, so when I applied to UTM, I was given an admission scholarship as well as a UTM Scholars Scholarship. So I did receive a fair amount of funding for my first year. I also work during the summers full time to pay for my education, which is why I have chosen not to study during the summers, which lots of people study during the summers and lots don't. And then I do not work during the school year. typically in my first, second, and third years. And then this year I got a work study position, which is great because it's super flexible and understanding about what the commitments are of being a student and helping you gain different skills that you need. And then as an Ontario resident, I also use OSAP, which is a form of assistance with money, like funding for me.
Awesome. So we are getting a lot of... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to shout out really quickly to an important tool that I'll ask to be linked in the chat as well, which is the financial planning tool. So there's a great tool on the University of Toronto website where all prospective students you can look at the campus and the program that you might be interested in and enter some information, and it will really give you a great sense of kind of what those costs might look like, as well as there's great detailed information about the process and the different kind of approaches for whether you're a domestic or an international student and how you might want to be planning to fund your studies. So there it is, that magically appeared there. Thank you, Alicia. So definitely check that tool out.
Awesome. Definitely. That's a great tool to use. We are getting a lot of student life questions. So the first question that I have for you is, can students start new clubs within the student body? And I know you're actively a part of a student club. So do you want to speak a little bit more on that?
Yes, so there's definitely ways to start your own clubs through the UTMSU or otherwise. There's ways to get funding for your clubs and you can become recognized. If there's something that interests you and it's not already available, you can definitely start a club.
Alicia, I know you were pretty active as a student at UTM. Did you have any experiences with clubs and associations?
Yeah, definitely. I was actually part of two clubs. So the first one was UTM because I am a girl. So that really helped me with the humanitarian perspective. We helped to raise a lot of funds. And then I actually did create my own club on campus. So I worked with a few of my friends and we created the Six Students Association. So it's definitely possible. There's honestly clubs for everyone. And honestly, if there isn't, feel free to start your own.
I like every so often a humorous one kind of comes to my attention, and I was working with some colleagues from the St. George campus, and somebody mentioned that there was a lettuce appreciation club this year. So I found that one really hilarious. So I guess
that's
it's
awesome.
Just a bunch of like-minded students who really love lettuce.
It goes to show the creativity of our students.
Yeah.
Emily, I do have a question for you that's regarding how did you manage your workload between the two different programs you're studying?
So I actually started with like life sciences as my admissions category, and then I found that I was interested in both biology and chemistry. So that is why I chose to double major in those. And a little bit of a helpful tool with that is there is some overlapping classes there, which can help to get knowledge in both areas. The workload can be heavy at times, but I just use time management techniques, planning with a calendar, and just knowing when my most busy weeks are that I'll probably use a little bit less socializing that week. And then I didn't add my minor on until my third year. That is when I had a lot more elective space, and that's when I figured out I could use my electives to fulfill my minor. So for me, adding the minor wasn't really any more of a workload, and it was just something that I was interested in anyways. So being interested in what you're doing really helps with the workload, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to field it back over to you, Emily M. And we are getting some questions regarding how does admissions cycle look with COVID circumstances? Are we taking them into consideration? And how is it impacting acceptances this year?
For sure. Nicole, I see your question there. So I saw that one coming. And it's a great question, by the way, as well. So many students who might be applying this year who are obviously also navigating a challenging year academically, rest assured, we are working with global systems around the world, as well as domestically our school boards, to really ensure that we're making equitable and fair assessments. So we've been flexible and we've been very much working with the results that have been made available to us in terms of programs. Importantly, you'll want to research and ensure that you have the necessary prerequisite academic knowledge for the program that you're applying to. But that said, we've gone test optional for this year for certain systems where traditionally we might ask for a supplementary test. And we're certainly being flexible depending on how the different global systems are or are not able to roll out exams or credentials that may be associated with their studies. So should you have specific questions about that, I would say don't hesitate to connect in directly with our admissions team to discuss your specific circumstances, and we'll be happy to advise you. But rest assured that we are equally kind of trying to navigate this unique year, and that we're, this past September, we were able to onboard the same number of students that we've traditionally admitted, and it's looking strong in terms of that. I did see a question as well, I'll add this on, that floated through that was kind of asking about like, what are the chances of getting in, or, what are the chances of the number of spaces. So most importantly, what's important to focus on in that space is we do have some general information where we publish general guidelines and recommendations on what grades and what prerequisite subjects we're typically looking for. We've been fortunate that in terms of space, we have a lot of capacity at UTM, that traditionally students who have been in the ranges that we do publish typically are in good standing for consideration for an offer of admission. So what you'll want to focus on is your specific unique academic record in terms of making sure that you have, approximately the grades that we've published and that you have those prerequisite subjects for the program that you're looking to apply for. And if you're in those ranges that are published, then you're likely in good standing for consideration for an offer of admission this year. As I mentioned, should you have specific questions or you want to have a little bit more of a one-to-one chat, please feel free to connect directly with us, with our admissions team, and we'll share some of our contact information on the screen shortly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was extremely informative. Moving it back over to you, Emily P. I know you were also commuting throughout several years of your undergraduate degree. So do you mind just talking a little bit about what was like the transit like and how was your commute looking like?
So I'm not gonna lie and say it's perfect all the time. It's definitely can be busy right in like 8, 9 a.m. and like 5 p.m. leaving campus. But if you just leave a little bit early, it's totally fine. And regarding buses, if you just take a bus that's not straight on the hour and you wait 10 minutes, it can make your bus load a lot lighter. It can be busy, but you just kind of got to leave a little bit early and it is okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. When I was a student there, I know I'd always try to see if I could leave class just a little bit earlier to avoid the chaos, or just, hang out for 10 minutes, get a coffee at Tim Hortons, and then like have an safe trip. So yeah, definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, and in terms of the infrastructure aspect of that question, we are connected to public transportation. Obviously, Emily mentioned the free shuttle bus that's available to UTM students to downtown, to the St. George campus. Some students might also opt for public transportation. And, generally speaking, from Mississauga campus to downtown Toronto, you're probably looking at budgeting like 40 minutes to an hour, I would say. I actually live in downtown Toronto myself. And depending on also what you're looking to achieve, the city of Mississauga also has a lot of amenities, so it may not necessarily warrant a trip into downtown Toronto. You might potentially be traveling out to, the large shopping center that we're quite close to, Square One. Alicia, you live in Mississauga. Any pieces of advice in that space?
Yeah, I think with the bus pass that we do get, because they know that there's so many students commuting, the buses populate so frequently that I never really had much of an issue. I could honestly get from one end of the city to the next with a few transfers or even a direct bus if I was lucky. So I think it was pretty easy. All right, so we do have some more questions. Moving this also back to you, Emily P., and this is kind of talking about co-op or research studies, and I wanted to know maybe if you've ever taken on those opportunities and what your experiences were like.
So I have not taken on a research opportunity position or co-op myself. I'm personally not necessarily interested in research, which is kind of crazy probably to a lot of you. I'm more interested in the teaching side of things myself, but lots of people do undertake research studies, and I do highly recommend the opportunity. There's lots of ways to apply starting in your second year. For research projects and independent research studies. I have a friend who is doing research right now on a topic that she truly loves, and she's getting access to data I had no clue you would be able to have access to as part of her undergrad. And it's definitely something to look into if you're interested in it.
I know someone on this chat here in presenting who was very active as a student and might have some thoughts on applied learning opportunities. Alicia?
Yeah, so I personally never really took on research opportunity programs, but it was definitely something very common that a lot of my friends did. So I resonate with you there, Emily. But I did take on co-op opportunities. For me specifically, since I was a science student, I went externally. So I went outside of the campus and I started applying through different job portals that are available to students. And I was able to gain my co-op and internship experiences throughout the summer. A lot of students also try to do it throughout the year if that works for them. For me, I preferred the summer to do that, and it was definitely a great experience. Each time I came back, it really refocused my studies and allowed me to really understand what more do I really want to go into and what doesn't really work for me anymore.
Emily P., I saw a question come through from Rajani, is asking if you can repeat the name of the course that you took where you were developing the chemistry questions for high school students.
Yes, so that's actually a brand new course this year, and it's CPS 401, Research and Development in Science Education, and it's not just for chemistry. You can also apply if you're in earth sciences or physical sciences.
Thank you. I also saw a fantastic question come through from Valentina, who is curious to hear some perspective about what it's been like in terms of like social life on campus, making friendships, developing, your network of people on campus.
Yeah, so honestly, this year I have not been on campus yet, more than a couple of times. So there's not tons happening on campus for me, but using different virtual platforms like Zoom, there is lots of events going on. And honestly, it can be a little bit less scary going to an event by yourself to meet people when you have the computer screen in front of you and you have the freedom to leave and not feel awkward if you did choose to. For example, I can still do the UTM dance team virtually. I know most clubs are still meeting virtually, and you can still join them if they happen virtually. And there's still like club fairs. And if you look through different Instagram sites, like through the UTM Student Union or Facebook, you can find out about more opportunities that are available to meet other students.
Thanks, Emily. And for those students who might be online, who might be wondering what kind of campus life looks like at the moment, we do have some students who are living on campus and some students who have been taking courses that have been hybrid, where there may have been some in-course elements where it's been safe or where they've opted to. So actually, if you want to check out some perspective on that, we do also have our previous Discover Day was hosted by another one of our students who gave their personalized tour, Samya, and she actually currently is living in residence on campus as well. So just to kind of share a bit of that context, that although Emily, which is a common experience for some of our students who has not been on campus very much at all this semester, that there are some students who are living on campus and some who may also be living on campus, but also doing their full course load online. So there are some resources that are set up, different support services, different academic learning resources for on-campus students, but it's certainly a unique year and looks a little bit different. So I'm mindful that we're now at time. So I'm going to throw it out to you, Alicia, to have a quick look. If there are any burning questions, we'll maybe field one more question. I did want to do a final kind of shout out to our audience and say thank you so much for logging in. We really appreciate you joining us this evening in Toronto, like I said, morning or afternoon, depending on where you may be. We will continue to host some future events like this. So we will have different students giving different tours from their perspective, as well as, once again, I'll give another shout out to our Discover UTM webpage, where you can check out some of our pre-recorded videos, including a general presentation for admissions, as well as a list of different events that we will continue to host. For our applicants, for those of you that have been given an offer of admission, we will be emailing and in contact with more detailed information about more detailed sessions that are designed to help you make a decision and to help prepare you for those of you that might be starting with us in September. So we'll have lots of different sessions on different topics, so definitely stay in contact. Alicia, were there any hard-pressing questions or anything super important to address before we sign off?
No, I think we've covered everything today.
All right, thanks so much. Apologies to those of you where maybe you had a personal question, we weren't quite able to get to that. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out to our team, either via email, telephone, or attending one of our future events. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you, Emily P., for sharing your personalized tour, and Alicia, obviously needless to say, for fielding those really tricky questions. So have a great night, everyone.